Hello people of YouTube, Rich from PCGamesN here, and we're excited to be talking to Creative Assembly about the Tomb Kings DLC for Total War Warhammer 2. Would you mind introducing yourselves to the camera?
Of course, yeah. So my name's Richard Aldridge and I'm the lead designer on the new content team.
Hi there, I'm Gary Deans and I'm an associate designer on the new content team.
And we've been having a little bit of a play with the Tomb Kings DLC so far, and I'm always, excited to see a new faction come to Warhammer and see how you guys will change up the campaign mechanics and everything. And in the Tomb Kings case, no recruitment costs, no unit maintenance,
Nope.
and there's not even a global cap on skeleton units, right?
That's right.
So you can field 20 stack armies pretty quickly, right?
Yeah, you can. I mean, we want to incentivise that idea of going and bringing back these legions of fallen warriors very quickly, but not feel afraid that you can't lose them in battle and resupplement yourself time and time again. It didn't quite feel right that the Tomb Kings would be spending their precious gold, which they want to craft into magical items and other nice commodities, to pay it out on these fallen soldiers, which the Lich Priests will be trying to bring back and restore, or the Necrotechs will be harnessing to use the constructs.
Yeah, and then the higher tier units, obviously they're harder to access because their recruitment buildings still cost, and you'll use some specialist currency, the jars.
Yep. Yeah. So we introduced a new secondary currency called Canopic Jars. So it's that kind of grotesque take, I guess, on things. What happens if you use organs and combine it with magic, and what crazy things can you do? I mean, Warhammer, it's the perfect place to dabble around with that kind of stuff.
Sure. And presumably they do retain all of the advantages of being undead, as do the vampire count ones. So no morale. What would you say are their weaknesses as an army when it comes to building up a force like that?
Yeah.
Building up they definitely suffer in terms of their basic units, their fodder units. They are not the greatest combatants at all. What they suffer in is their lack of armor piercing. For instance, in a campaign that I played recently, in the early game I came up against the dwarfs, and the dwarfs are high melee defense, high armor, and they are just a wall of shields. And for your early game Tomb King player, your armor piercing units are few and far between. So getting them to get into their sort of strongholds is a challenge, I'd say, for sure.
And when it comes to more powerful units, there's a global cap on their recruitment, right? Unlike with the fodder units. How will we raise that cap?
So you're going to go out into the campaign and essentially, play like one of these fallen pharaohs. They've just awakened back into this world. They're not happy. This isn't the paradise that they were expecting, and they're absolutely hell bent on bringing back their civilization to the prosperous ways that it was before all of the dark, nasty stuff that Nagash did and cursed the world. So you're going to play that part. You're going to go and find these, buried cities. You're going to take back what was taken from you, get back your resources, your marbles, your gold, and with doing that, you're going to be, constructing these great wonders, these pyramids, crypts, tombs, and from which the Guardian of Shabtis would have been, or your hero titans, and all these other illustrious construct units. And that's going to, they're going to be hard to come by because they are precious things. It's no easy task, but you've got plenty of skeletons to supplement that. So you're able to quickly amass large forces whilst you're unearthing and developing the rest of your civilization.
With respect to the constructs and things, so those elite units, you will unlock further copies of them for your army by building more of those recruitment buildings.
That's right.
Yep.
Does that I imagine that puts a pressure in the late game on your town configurations that other civs don't, or other races rather, don't have, because they might be content to rely on the global recruitment pool, and as long as they've got one copy of that building, they don't necessarily need another.
Yeah, correct. So it's very different in that regard. I mean, I would think of these guys as playing you play deep. You take your home settlement and you deeply build within that, rather than maybe branching out and sort of having lots of bits and pieces in different places, because that way you can develop your race to its full potential. You can get to these illustrious tier 5 units. Obviously, if you branch out, you are more than welcome to do that, but you might be finding that some things are a little harder to come by. Their economy is very small in comparison to some of the other factions.
Gold income is tough.
Yeah. So that's like a counter to the fact that you can amass these great armies, and you've got the dynasties, the great pharaohs of old to sort of look into what they did, and you can bring some of those to the battlefield as well. So you can use your jars that essentially bring back these great warriors, and they've all got their own unique and intrinsic skills, and they all tie into what that dynasty was famous for in the lore.
And that ties into the building up an army and the recruitment thing as well, because your army, your number of lords is capped too.
That's absolutely right.
And as you research, unlock more dynasties, then the research time to unlock the next one lengthens.
Yes.
So there's like this break on building up too many forces as quickly.
Absolutely. Otherwise, the Tomb Kings would just rule the world like
like they want to.
Yeah. Setcha would be very happy with that, by the way.
And so they're one of the only 2 tabletop races with a neutral moral alignment. How does that and how do they tie into the Vortex objective? I mean, let me rephrase. They don't, right?
Yeah, they don't.
With respect to the Vortex, we really wanted to tell their story. Like, it felt like inserting them directly into the Vortex's narrative was unnatural. We felt like the Tomb Kings really didn't make sense without the overarching threat of Nagash and the Black Pyramid. So that's kind of where we centered the threat, was the Black Pyramid. It's stirring. All this sort of chaos and disruption is sort of washing over the world, and the Black Pyramid is stirring, and this is a super weapon that was developed way back, and this has got all the Tomb Kings worried, except Arkan, who is now trying to exploit this situation.
Absolutely.
So we really want to tell this story because I think the Tomb Kings just don't make sense without this overarching sort of threat.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the name there.
Oh yeah.
And it's obviously it's a shadow that hangs over the Tomb Kings in the lore massively. And it would just be so cool. I suspect I know what the answer is going to be. Is there any chance we'll ever see Nagash in Total War Warhammer?
Well, the Tomb Kings have got their own very climactic finale, but as we've said on all previous interviews, and as we like to tell our fans, we're evolving, we're organic, we're growing. More stuff's going to come to the party as time will tell. I mean, we've got 4 brilliantly different legendary lords here, each of them a different starting position. I mean, we've got Arkan and Setcha starting in the kind of the realms of Nekahara, or very close to. Off on the coast there. You've got Khalida down in Lustria, so she's going to be tackling the vampires that reside within that part of the world. She's hell bent on destroying those. And you've got Katep, the poor old Grand Hierophant, who's been exiled right out into Nagaroth. And his campaign is definitely about trying to get back into the good graces of his king.
It's a redemption story. That's what it is.
It is.
Plenty of stories to tell.
It is. And then Mortal Empires. Same again, but different. We've got Khalida starting in Liberas, her home city. So any lore-hardened fans would be very pleased to see that she's there, because that city doesn't exist in the Vortex campaign. And likewise, we've moved got the other guys in their appropriate positions. I mean, Katep is still in Nagaroth, still trying to make his way home, and Arkan is still there trying to mix things up and cause trouble for everybody else.
So I wanted to ask about those 4 legendary lords, because that's more generous than we've got in previous campaign packs, and we've got a very full roster as well this time.
Yes.
I think, is it only Bone Giants or Bone Colossi that are missing?
Yeah, whichever edition of the book that you're more familiar with, the Bone Giant. Yeah.
So but there's no mini campaign. So why the change?
We heard what the fans were asking for, which was we'd like bigger army rosters, and we'd like more of the legendary lords and the big name
different start positions
characters
as well.
So we as developers totally wanted to embrace that. We want to put as many units in. I mean, you are a unit master, so it's great fun for you.
Absolutely. Like we work quite closely with Games Workshop, and they're quite generous with allowing us to sort of create our own units with their blessing to make the roster more complete. Because one problem we did have in the initial stages was that we had Skeleton Warriors and then Tomb Guard, and that's a huge gap. That's a massive gap. You're for say 60 turns in the campaign, you'll have just Skeleton Warriors. So we added a unit called the Nehekara Warriors, which are your more heavily armored, dual wielding sort of Nehekara Warriors. And they sort of serve as a stepping stone to the Tomb Guards in sort of later turns. So they were generous enough to allow us to do that. And also with the Nahakara Horsemen, who are your sort of more heavy cavalry, more heavily armoured melee cav, we've got them as well because we felt like the Tomb Kings were lacking that sort of versatility. Yeah. And I think the sort of like cherry on the cake though is definitely the Hiro Titan. Like he has no model. There's no model in this range.
No, that's true. I never knew or understood what he would look like.
Yeah, So our artists and animators worked quite closely with the Games Workshop to bring this guy to life.
And it looks terrific from the trailer.
He's my favourite unit.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, we were reading all the snippets like, what would this guy be? And I remember there sitting there one day and we read the thing about how he harnesses the power of the sun god Petra, and somehow brings that to destroy those who oppose. And it's like,
how would he do that?
How do you do that? How about laser beams from his eyes?
Very cool.
And no one believed it to start off with, but here we have it. It's wonderful. And
yeah, for a bit of background on this unit, like this unit is essentially a Lich Priest, one of the sort of casters for the Tomb Kings, in a sarcophagus which is embedded in the centre of this, which is essentially a giant mech, giant priest mech, essentially. So I just think the idea of the unit is just absolutely amazing. I love him to bits.
Yeah, and the one I want to add just before we move on is Tomb Swarm.
Oh yeah.
So I imagine many people would not expect that we would even dare touch the Tomb Swarm, but we did. But we did it in a way which means that you can get to have a full 20 stack of your most beautiful Nekaharan, constructs and warriors and all the rest of it. And this is an army ability. So you get that whole tar pit experience from the tabletop, but not at the loss of using, one of your slots up. So yeah, you get to see some of those nasty little scarabs doing their work.
Good stuff. I'll cover off a few more systems about the army. So magic, right? Like in the tabletop, they have a very different and unique magic system based on all incantations and things. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about how that'll work. Is it essentially just another lore, or is it?
It's another lore of magic, absolutely, but it does tie into how the Tomb Kings sort of heal their units, because they've got quite a few cheap spells, like cheap in terms of mana cost. So you can cast these quite frequently throughout the battle, and each time you cast these, they will heal and resurrect units across the entire army. And that's important because the Tomb Kings don't have like a Invocation of Nehek, which sort of heals vampire units, because that's what we wanted to do from like day one, was how do we make vampire counts different from Tomb Kings? And the answer was change how they summon, change how they heal, and give them ranged units, because the vampire counts completely lack ranged units.
Absolutely.
So the Tomb Kings have got your catapults, your archers, and you've got your Ashabti greatbows, which are essentially mobile ballistas. So, that was, from day one, was make them as different as possible from the vampire counts.
We wanted to do more interesting things with the right system that Warhammer 2 came up with, and we thought, well, what's more befitting of the Tomb Kings than to have their own sandstorm, which covers all their territories and protects themselves from those who invade. So you'll get to see that right. You'll pop the button, and then the world will turn.
You see a graphical impact on the map.
Yeah,
very cool.
Yeah,
I did wonder actually, because I noticed some smaller sandstorms, little spinning dervishes and things. Is that?
No, they're nothing. They're ambient. The sandstorm is all encompassing. Sorry?
No, we've had those, but we've gone back to that part of the world, that part of the campaign map, and we've given it a nice lick of paint. And there's some new props in there. There's the new quest locations which you'll see. Without spoiling things, is a great epic for the finale for the campaign. But there's some also very important quests as well for some of the characters to go on as well throughout the Vortex campaign in particular. And we had to obviously make Warhammer 2 the way it was, because the Tomb Kings were not there, but we wanted to do that justice and put that right and bring about all the wonderful things that they bring to the Warhammer universe.
Awesome. One other thing about the Tomb Kings as an army then, there's item crafting via the mortuary cult, right? Tell us a little bit about how that'll work.
So I guess it was one of those things that it's always been on the back burner. One of these things that we've kind of gone more towards an RPG experience, how we're expanding our characters, making them more unique, giving you lots of skills and things to dabble in. And for me, the natural progression just felt like, well, how can we take that to another level? And reading about the mortuary cult, which is this kind of secret crypt of all the Lich priests and how they come about their incantations, it seemed like a very good fit, whereby we can allow these guys to sort of enhance the characters' the kings, the pharaohs that Tomb Kings have. And we wanted to also incentivize the player to get out there, get out in that world, go and experience different places. As much as Nekahara's got a lot to offer, so is the rest of the world, and especially Mortal Empires. You know, we want this interaction of the different races and crossing the Great Seas. So now trade resources become a much more valuable commodity to have. And you'll use those with the Canopic Jars, which is, you know, the currency which you're giving the Tomb Kings, to craft these. Some of them are quite basic items, but they just get you rolling. Some of them are going to be, you know, legendary, and there's only going to be one of them available to give out to anyone in your lords.
I saw some pretty strong ones.
And yeah, we absolutely want some kick-ass strong stuff in there to incentivize you to go after this. So, you know,
you've also got the units as well, which is
you do.
A Regiment of Renown system, which is the sort of unique units which you can only get one of for the entire campaign. We've created these Legions of Legend, which are another step up. They're unique to the campaign map. They require a huge amount of resources and a huge amount of investment, but they are like in another tier. So that
they're even stronger than Regiments of Renown.
They're even stronger than Regiments of Renown, and that's why we've made them unique to campaign. Because we don't want them running rampant in the multiplayer, sort of just slaughtering army after army. So that way, that allowed us the freedom to sort of bump them up and make them that much better and that much more desirable, so that the player will want to go and get, say, this gem resource or this iron resource to get them, basically. So
yeah, we want to create different experiences for the player. You know, we took on board some of the feedback that we received on, you know, the monster hunts for Norska, and how people said, oh, I quite like, you know, going and fighting for this or going and doing a quest. And we thought, well, how else can we expand on this and change things up? And this is just another take, and it'll be interesting, you know, to see which ones of these units people like to bring. And
it also makes items themselves more engaging.
Yeah,
right now,
absolutely.
I mean, unless it's a legendary, I feel almost as though, you know, they're just things that I get after battle, and I almost forget about them.
The thing about Tomb Kings is, though, is we've reduced the rate of drop for normal magic items, because normally other factions will get passive items throughout their sort of like play, but with the Tomb Kings we reduced that just to incentivize them to sort of pick different sort of items and craft them themselves.
So you can still get stuff, but hopefully you feel like, you know, oh, I really fancy that, and you know, or I'm going to deck out all my characters with this speed potion, or, you know, scorpion armor, or whatever it might be. It definitely allows you to role play.
Last couple of things then. Can we expect a smooth integration with the Mortal Empires DLC?
Absolutely. Yeah.
With Tomb Kings?
Yeah,
it's going to be there from the get-go. So you're going to be able to play Vortex campaign or Mortal Empires with any of your preferred Lord choices.
Terrific. And finally, this, by my count, makes 13 of the 15 8th edition rulebook races or factions in the game, and the last 2 are kind of off the map. So presumably no more DLC until Warhammer 3, right?
We'll be working on some other bits and pieces, and, you know, we've said this before, it's very organic, it's very, you know, an experience where we want to get all people's favourites, you know, characters, units, races, all to come along and join in. So we'll be supplementing Warhammer 2 with more content, both paid content and free LC content as well.
Is it Arabai next?
Well, that would be an interesting one, wouldn't it?
I don't think I've heard of them before.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks very much, guys. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, great.
Thank you guys for watching and for listening. Give us a like if you enjoyed. Share and subscribe to your friends. There's plenty more PC gaming content in general, and plenty more Total Warhammer 2 content on our YouTube channel and our website. Until we see you again, thanks for watching and take care.